It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcasted sitting at a dining room table in the city section of Auckland, New Zealand. Formerly, we stood at a kitchen bench in Kingsland until I moved, and the relevance of discussing that change now is I've just realised as I acclimatised to sitting to record the bits for this show that I'm sitting in the chair that squeaks when I even move slightly. So perhaps test of your luxury item priced Beats by Dre headphones. Can you hear the occasional squeak? Though I will try and stay still. Maybe I should do one just to test your headphones. Hang on. There we go. Let a little one out there. My guests today are Cian and Cian, and it's a duo I assembled in terms of the show. I certainly didn't assemble them as a duo. They have a long and enduring friendship, as they discuss on the podcast, and the reasons for them being on the show, well, the core reason, the proverbial light bulb that sparked getting them both in. I would have happily had either as general guests to discuss life, the universe, and everything, is that a venue that Cian and a wider bunch of people started in 1999 in a road off K Road, Galatos, strangely enough on Galatos Street, is having a 20th year anniversary party at said venue. But the episode isn't just about Galatos. We talk, as is typical on the show, about a bunch of things, but kind of with the backbone of a bit of a semi-chronological story of lives and backgrounds and so on. Both Cian and Cian, but as Cian says on the show, in an organisational capacity, maybe particularly Cian, has been involved. I feel like I sort of put Cian on a second shelf there. Cian, if you hear this, you know what I mean, in terms of a bunch of different... Cian did the turnaround. It was pretty good bit of culture and colour and life in Auckland. Anyway, don't overthink this, Lewis. Certainly don't start recording again. I have a life to get on with. Cian's been responsible for a number of those bits of sort of colour and flavour and texture that make, frankly, living in concrete cities a bit more vibrant and give it a bit more of a sense of community and culture. And before I speak a little bit more about that, I was reflecting on that, guiltily thinking about recording this intro about 2 days ago, my life being a series of things that I finally get around to doing, and then I start concentrating on feeling like shit for not doing the next one. But anyway, the Rugby World Cup, when it was hosted here, must be a few years ago now, one of the big games was on, and the central city was almost like carnival in, an overseas city. Just seas of people. It would have looked, like a stadium concert from the air, I'm sure. And what really struck me as I got my way through the crowd, because I was DJing somewhere that night at a bar, was just that the council just had nothing on the streets to sort of, even on a most pragmatic level, keep people vibed up, There was sort of not even, no street performers, something to kind of make the family and the kids happy. No street vendors doing food, just the retail spots trying to cope. Nothing except for the regular city, licensed venues trying to sell as much beer as they could, and the rugby. So to Cian, he started the Aotea Markets down there in Altea Square. There was another one up on Chinaman's Hill for a minute, and I think he's done curated, that terrible word, the food stalls at Splore. Had a venue at the top of Queen Street called Kuja Lounge, which, if you know, if you don't know, you'll hear about on this episode. And of course had Galatos, which is where we started. Galatos is a venue with some interesting history. There's a great article on the Herald if you Google it, but it was nearly 100 years old when they got in there, and it was built for the ancient order of Druids, which almost sounds like a before their time KLF. And they were a group aiming for social and intellectual discourse and general benevolence. Kind of a nice place to start. I will leave you with this conversation, like the show Verbal Highs podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter, Google Podcasts, which is a new app from them, hoping to capture the huge Galaxy market, who percentage-wise don't listen to as many podcasts as iTunes or iDevice or Apple people or whatever you call that tribe. You'll find me. You've already found me.
Verbal high straight down from up above.
I have to give him the call, do you know what I mean? Let him know whether or not, do you know what I mean?
I was lying in bed at 9, just got lying going, oh, fuck.
You guys, when he came in, he goes, it was actually my 50th last night. I'm like, I think you guys have done well.
Yeah, fuck.
We wouldn't want to be interviewing any of the other people, would you? But
mind you, Paul sent me an early morning text and said, good to see you last night.
No, he's asked, I'm trying to ring him because he wants to come.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm like, well,
he might be taking in the final moments of Wednesday, you didn't know. One black.
Yeah, tell him he's going to have to go in that car park.
There you go, bro.
Thank you. Because,
you have to go in that car park.
Yeah. There's no
sorry,
no parking, man.
Yeah. I hope it's not as much as what I saw it was.
It is, yeah.
All right.
So
Thank you.
Mic
drop.
Sorry, mate. So I've got 20 minutes.
Well, I thought it was an hour. I thought we were doing an hour and 20. We're doing 20 minutes.
Well, hour and 20 is about, what's that, about $25?
It's 12. Is it 12 an hour?
15,
it can't really be 12 an hour.
15 an hour.
Oh, is it?
15.
No, it can't. It's not. It was 12 an hour.
We should
15
steam into
an hour.
this.
Are you in the car park too, bro?
No. I'm on the street, but mine expires in an hour. But
oh, fuck this city for ruining this. We've done so well. 20,
well.
20 minutes.
At least we're here anyway. Thank you for the coffee, bro.
No worries. So post 50 years in one day, didn't so that he could make it here and made it here. And so I've got Cian and Cian, and you guys are here because I thought of having both of you up separately, and then figured I could hustle getting both of you in if we talked leading up to the Galatos reunion. Cian, I don't know how to pronounce your surname. I realise it's going to be like that awkward time I tried to pronounce Recluse's surname and he laughed at me. So how do you pronounce your surname? Is it French?
Yeah, it's derived from French. French slavery. But we denounced our slavery name, so we actually made this name up. You know, great-grandfather, it was his nickname. Yeah. And we took it on as our surname, Joavel.
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 Can you pull that mic a little bit closer? No, oh, yourself, yeah.
Yo.
Yeah. And Cian O'Donnell, Cian is according to his LinkedIn business owner, event organiser and entrepreneur, and the only person on LinkedIn I've seen put a keyboard wink. And Cian's a DJ, broadcaster, slinger of shellac and party thrower. When did you guys first meet?
Right, that's going
90.
Yeah, 1990.
90.
And it was if I can remember, Cian, it was Judith introduced us as we were going up towards DKD.
Yep.
That's it.
I totally remember
it
being up there.
Yeah, and having a coffee up DKD which incidentally, as we all know, was like one of the few espresso coffee places.
Yeah.
At that particular time.
Yeah.
So, and that's where I met this young gentleman.
I think,
and he was a young gentleman.
Oh man, I was. I don't know if you saw the photo that Phil posted up the other day, but yeah, I've aged
but that was
a
a
little
London
bit
one, though.
since then. Yes.
Gracefully.
Yeah.
So before that, we'll come back to that. But I thought today, because I talked to Cian. Did you ever read that article I wrote about him for Audio Culture?
I did, yes.
So we've got some intel there. So we'll get on to you guys in a sec. But what do you know about Cian prior to meeting? Do you know where he's from? Do you know where he's born?
No, I found all that on out after that initial meeting, sitting down with him and Jude. I think Jude was trying to find people for an event that they were doing down in Wellington, wasn't she?
That was the Planet. That was for the Planet. Yeah, it was a Planet event happening down there at Wellington Town Hall, where musical, fashion show creatives, from Auckland went down there and gave it the bash, and it was a memorable.
Two busloads of us went down. Which I'm sure someone must have mentioned in one of his interviews. It was a pretty.
No,
infamous.
He mentioned it in the Audio Culture article, and then I sent him the copy, to approve it because it's his story, and then it got published, and he goes, "What did you say? Something like, I didn't realise it was going to be that like tripping at pipe organs and L&P bottles and this and that."
This was a legendary weekend down in Wellington, and incidentally, it was there was Galatos Theatre, which was across the road from where Galatos is now. Yeah. And that was
not that old barn, that old hay barn.
No, it was an actual theatre.
Yeah.
And Alan Green, P. Schleiser, Matthias, they had this thing going on, offbeats, and this Galatos Theatre, and
the lewd and the ludicrous, or something like that.
It was something that turned me on here, because when I first came here, there wasn't really a lot going on. But it is the people who you meet.
It is. You're from Hereford in England. You came on out here at the end of a kind of OE, being a bit of a traveller.
Yeah, fully.
Yeah. And Cian, whereabouts in the UK were you born, and how did you end up here? And
I wasn't actually born in the UK.
Oh, okay.
But I was taken to South East London.
Yeah.
First school was in Deptford.
Yeah.
Then from there, I was fledged out and went down to Kent.
Yeah.
A place called Chatham, Rochester.
Yeah.
Come back up.
Yeah.
To London, so all round Brockley, New Cross.
Yeah.
It's away. So I've lived in numerous places, so I have quite a bit of depth when it goes to.
What's the French slave connection? Is that Haitian? No.
That's Saint Lucia.
Yeah, right.
So we come through Martinique.
Yeah.
And from there, they dispersed through to their islands.
Yeah.
But we become a British island after the French and English fought over it roughly about 10 times.
Yeah.
So so there's lots of naming of the islands, part French, English,
And were you stopping on through here for a holiday, or did you meet someone and move over here, or?
No, that's even a longer story. But do you know what I mean? I'll keep that story for something else.
When the parking's
yeah. So that's an even longer story. But 1990. That. Shall I just rewind that back to Galatos? The Galatos Theatre?
Yeah.
Well, those guys actually really turned me on to go, wow, there's actually something happening here. And then I met Judith and Philip Campbell and Cian, and and there was a great scene here. There was lots of creatives and people seem to have this energy about them that they were all going one way. You know, they were all had a focus in life. You know, the likes of the George Nookus, you know, the Rosanna Raymonds. It was a special place.
And then you came on back to Wellington for a while, and then moved up here permanently?
All the visits, all the occasions where I bumped into Phil and Jude and Gino were visits coming on up for weekends or whatever. And I didn't move on up here until Jude and Gene invited me on up to help set up Kuja. But yeah, I've been in Wellington for years, really. That was my kind of base, I guess. But
those tapes you used to, kids, pre-internet, Cian's mixtapes, those the sound of Wellington, I'd imagine. If you
legendary,
again,
legendary.
They'd be collectible. For the handwriting alone.
I've got.
You look at the handwriting, you go, "That's a creative dude."
Yeah, legendary.
Can't read anything he's trying to write, but
Yeah.
I've progressed to CDs now.
So you move on up for Kuja, and Gene, like, had you run venues before, and what was the motivation? All these people that had been bubbling on up in the scene, or
well, before that, anyway.
Yeah.
When Judith and I came back, because Judith and I, we went to live in Portugal, we went to live in Spain, the UK, and when we came back, we had a house in View Road, and that was like Little Party Central, up here in Auckland, and so this bro and many others used to come up and give us a good night, and we used to hold many a party there. Yeah, and
Dan in Welly,
and Dan,
times, so.
Yeah. So we used to swap in between, you know.
Yeah.
And so up in those days, used to come like Moo and Leon,
Flick.
So when I first met you, I think when Benny did that tour of Auckland versus Welly. Remember when Benny did that Wellington versus Auckland thing at the box?
Yeah.
So you're saying the party needed to move out of the house?
That was a party place.
Yeah.
But if you want to know if we'd run that, Judith and I, we were helping out with dance parties in Portugal, early dance parties, Sunrise and things like that, and we actually run in a bar there. But when we came back, because our house was kind of like more or less known as the party place, if anybody come from, this is where they congregated, and musical influences were coming out of there, and but Judith used to live, when I first met Judith, she actually used to live where Kuja is now.
Right.
So rewinding back the story, so in the course of meeting Cian,
I was staying up there with Jude.
Yes, he was staying up there with Judith, okay? Yeah. And so I've got couple of photographs still of Cian up there making up his bed.
That's right, because
a mattress on the ground.
Because
it's
the ultimate resident DJ story. He played every night of the week and slept there.
I mean, that's why I really believe that's why Kuja worked so well, because it had already been kind of used as. I mean, Jude, as we all know, both of them.
It had the blessing.
The ultimate hosts.
Yeah.
And it had already been broken in,
So the parties were had up there. And so when we came back, and then we've got this little party house thing kind of like going. There's lots in between before Kuja. So Judith, Yasmin Farry, and... they started a little ISIS. It was ISIS, that was the first name.
So production
company. Just doing gigs, and Jessica, that's it, Jessica Agri, and used to put on little gigs. Dang, what's the place? Dang, where you. ended up
the
doing
Foundry.
The Foundry, yes, yeah. I can remember that one.
Foundry was where the turnaround ended up. So below Toto, it was known as the Foundry. Before the Foundry, it was Peter Ehrlich's. I think Roger, Senny, Bevan. They'd all played down there. But it was such a great venue.
Yeah, it was a concrete box at the time. But we used to. Judith, used to put on, all of us. It was a group of it was, a whole unit of us.
Yeah.
We knew what strengths everybody had, and so we all, put those strengths together. And the name was ISIS back then. And then from that, the girls then went on to do a thing called Sama Productions, which was basically the first kind of multicultural talent agency here in Auckland, in New Zealand, I believe.
And I remember, Cian, you were saying that kind of leaked on through to the clientele at Kuja.
Oh, fully.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why Kuja was so colourful,
Yeah.
I think, right from get-go.
Which is crazy to me now, because Auckland often feels quite segregated these days in a lot of ways.
It really is.
It's a different beast.
It really is.
Yeah,
It's a totally different beast now.
I think we need something like Carnival, but our own spin on it to get all the
I've been speaking about this lately.
Yeah.
That we're so-called cosmopolitan city, but I think we're all in different.
I think geographically it's got way more entrenched. Like you have kind of like
we were far more blended.
Yeah.
When I came here, I was buzzing out.
I've thought about it. I think a part of it is like ethnicities essentially settling in suburbs en masse. It's weird.
Well, inner city Auckland's totally different to what it was when we were here. It was heaps of interesting little warehouse spaces, like artists with cheap rent. Yeah, it's the same story.
Britomart, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Squatters, everywhere around it.
Yeah.
Mount Street just here was a big street for us. Where Planet was, and
where I lived on Cuba Street for about 3 years is like little boutique offices now. It was where Moo and the cotton stores round the corner. We're all living in those places for less than $100 a week each.
We've partied. That was one of the parties that Jude and Jean came down to Gusney Street for.
Because we'll come back timeline wise, but this is interesting. You guys bring this up because I'm always like, is there what's the word? Not reminiscing, but like, what's the other word? Like reminiscing. I always forget it.
Nostalgia.
Just going, it was better then. Surely there's a modern iteration of people with like creative mindset in Auckland, but it is different on the street. It is different on a street level. We're not just being like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anything ever stays the same.
Well, that's it.
Everything's moving forward, whether for good or for better.
That's what I mean. So if you're 22 now in Auckland, you're not walking around going, "Oh, this is shit," because you got your own way of
growth, isn't it? Everything's about growth, but well, anyway, going back, Sama were
fuck capitalism. Anyway,
Sama were a very important part to play in many aspects. As they weren't around very long, but the mark that they set, and so do you know what I mean? Sama was. Was Judith Campbell, Jessica Agri, and Anita Agri, were Yasmin, and then Yasmin brought her brother in, which was Gareth Ferry, who is it Dunedin? Who was just come up from Dunedin, and
into what a collective of people,
and man, and they made a mark, they set a mark. And then Judith and myself, and Yasmin, we wanted to create a space, which was all-encompassing of what Sama was about, and a night space, because what Cian just said, were Judith and Jean were, the host, of many a great gathering party. So we always wanted to do it back. We looked around, but we wanted to do it back where we'd had the parties of old. Judith, living upstairs of the Westpac building. And like Cian just said, it had the recipe to make it. It was just a concrete wall, but we knew what we could do with it. And so that's
it had like little. It had the rooms. It was quite an odd layout for a bar in many ways. Didn't it have what was it? What was it before it was a bar?
It actually wasn't just one long room. There was two big rooms. Yeah, and all those doors were like big steel doors like that. You couldn't close them. You couldn't.
Was it an ex-bank vault or something?
Yeah. There was no showers in there. So across the road...
What'd you do there, Cian?
We used to run across the road with our towels in the morning and go to... Is it Lombard?
Yeah, there used to be a hotel directly opposite.
Yeah.
Okay? So where you've got the church right next door. There used to be a hotel with the fire escapes, like the old, zigzaggy.
Yeah.
Bang, go up there. Used to be sweet with the cleaners. Yeah, go up there, have a shower or whatever, bump into someone staying there. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, so that was how you lived, and
continually throwing keys out of.
But you were the only one living there by that stage, eh?
No.
Yes, Jude's place.
It was Jude's place. I was just crashing it in between one of my jaunts from Australia.
You always all looked well kept, You always smelt great, and always good hospitality. Yeah.
So just to rephrase on that, so Cian and I met through Judith Campbell. Okay.
Yeah.
Judith lived upstairs at the Westpac Bank, which is where got turned into Kuja.
Yeah.
Okay, and Cian ended up staying with her. Then.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to clear that one up, but that was like the little party place. I've got some pictures of that, of us partying up there as well.
So Cian, I think it was a few years ago now. You had the markets on, but you still have your kind of finger on what it takes to run or kind of do something in Auckland. I'm just thinking, such an esoteric space, people living on in it. Like, how hard was it to get a license and turn it into a bar back then?
It was real hard. It was real hard. It was real. It was real hard. But one thing which I do say, one of the partners which we took on, which was Gareth. So there was just four of us.
Yeah.
He did. The family they did a lot of hard work in getting that space and were getting a license so that we could turn it into a bar.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Did you have experience with that before? Like, running a venue is a big thing, right? I suppose as a collective, it's.
Well, Jude and I would run bar before, and to lots of holiday makers, in Portugal. And like I say, we did that dance parties, but we naturally, how would I say, we naturally got hospitality.
Yeah, you do
in our bones. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so that wasn't any big deal for us. It was just about getting good people. We knew the people who we wanted to market to. I'm a great believer in quality rather than quantity. And in all ways, and that's how I am.
Yeah. No, to be clear, I wasn't meaning your guys' personal ability to, do something well, hospo gig-wise. I was meaning just like the things they throw at you in a city when you try and put a bar on the third floor of an old bank building.
Of course.
Yeah.
But like I say, do you know what I mean? Gareth and Yasmin's family, and themselves, they worked hard in getting it, and they did a really good job.
People initially were like, "What on earth are you doing? Opening up a bar, 3 floors on up? No one knows."
That's what's good about it,
and that's exactly why it worked.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
But LT, it was hard educating people back then because I used to say, look, the best bars and clubs in London, you go to Soho and that, the ones you don't see. In New York, same thing, you don't know where it is, okay? And if you want to be bothered to come up free flights, then you're going to be in for a good surprise. If you don't, then...
Because you had the same thing with... you probably don't remember, when I came over to your place and chatted to you for that article, one of us said that to the other, like, I kind of like bars, like, upstairs or downstairs, because you were talking about... you got the same vibe with the basement. There's not really much of it now in Auckland, eh?
I'm a little bit out of touch with what's going on in Auckland.
Yeah, just little underground things.
I went to a rave on a hunger last Saturday, I was telling Cian. It was proper too, yeah. It was good.
Nice.
He turns out he knows some of the organisers, but a friend. Music wasn't really up my alley, but it's good. It was good. Lots of people. Good. Yeah.
That's so good because
he's a tradie, so he just turns his. He's got a grid on his face. He turns his He turns his workshop into a
brilliant
good venue.
Brilliant. I wonder if it's the same.
Yeah,
it might be the same.
Because an old spa of mine, Andy $2, aka $2 Andy himself and I, and we had a white warehouse out there, and that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
But it was pretty hard getting people from the city to Only Hunger back then, you know. Yeah. But we did it, and we had the Funky Monks come up and play.
Yeah.
All the Wellington Massive come up.
That was another mammoth road trip.
Yeah. Wow. Good to know that these things are still happening after almost 25 years.
He does. They do. I don't know the Cats, but through a friend of mine. But I was saying to Cian, they do that shipwrecked thing, the kind of like off the grid explore.
Oh yeah.
I
know a few of the heads. I've still yet to go to that though, so I look forward to.
So how long did you DJ 5 days a week there before other people started coming in? What happened when the doors opened? First couple of years. I remember you saying the first couple of years were great.
Where we going? Where we going? We going?
Okay.
We still
I'm trying to. I've got a list. Yeah, you keep going all over the time. It's very interesting though. Kuja. Yeah, we occasionally reflect on the modern times and then we go back to the olden times.
Right. I think just for the first year, just to get it off the ground, it was just kind of myself and Jamie, Sam would, Junior, he'd jump on a couple of times, but it was just real in-house. And then Steve.
And Steve. I got Steve Usher from who was down the box at that time.
Selector Sam.
And pulled in Selector Sam later on. I pulled in Selector Sam later on. We opened up during the day, and Selector Sam used to work down at Real Groovy, and I said, look, and he'd never played music. He was a grand collector of music, and then I got him to come up and do a lunchtime thing, and I still remember how nervous he was. Oh, and how thankful!
What, like an audition or something?
No. We used to play. So we opened up Kuja during the day. As a little cafe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but it was like still had DJs spinning. So you can come up, grab your coffee, a piece of cake, bang, and and that's how. With Selector Sam, got him up there. But I can still remember his hands were all sweaty because he'd never. And it was like, no, just play music, man.
But everyone, I don't know if you remember that. I remember that, especially when it's like people you respect, and you're getting into that world. I totally relate to that. The first few times I would have played somewhere like
of course. And look, and from there, Selector Sam, look, bang. I've been trying to get hold of him as it goes for this Galatos. But I haven't been managed to get him because he then came up there and played a very good few nights up there, the popcorns and things like that. Yeah.
The word I was looking for is nostalgia, but that's past now. But I realised you kind of answered what I was asking in that same riff about why things similar aren't happening now, and it's that. There's so much red tape, right? You wouldn't even think if you were like beginning in this world to try and put something on at an abandoned space in town, because you'd have the council all over you, and you'd have. I'm just thinking about even one-off gigs and stuff.
Good. We were just saying last night,
That's what it is.
We were shutting up, say like 6 a.m.
New Zealand's I wouldn't say backward, but there is just so much red tape to get simple things done. You know, like a mate of mine just went for the first time over to the UK, and he was just blown away by how, you know, he was in Bristol, which is my old stomping ground.
Yeah.
And he was saying, you know, you can just walk into a bar, buy a carafe of wine, go outside and sit and eat it, sit and drink it within quite a large radius. It's not all sectioned off. You know, like, just more civilised, you know.
Which relates to the rules then. Now I live in town. Like, I think if you have someone you can't explain this to, you just can't, so don't fucking bother. But the licensing laws going back to 4 to me is like New Zealand going back to the 70s. It's not like, well, who wants to be out at 6 or whatever it is all the time? It's not about that. It's about select pockets of people who can hold it down, being able to do that. And it makes us an international city, relating to living here, not even relating to dancing, any of that. I'd like to just go out into a vibrant city after 2 a.m. here, but you don't. I'm living in the middle of a city, you know.
That,
you see what I mean?
That closes down really early.
Yeah, closes down really early.
Night markets. There's no food street sellers.
Yeah.
You know, like trying to get, whether it's a food truck or a food stand anywhere, even in Raglan where I live, it's so friggin' hard because I don't know if it's just the local businesses that don't want, you know, cheap competition set up outside their doorstep.
I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir with you guys, but it's things like people who don't understand that there's not only like a binge drinking, punchy culture, thinking that if you shut it all down, I don't know. Multicultural markets first, maybe then to a street carnival, then we take over Auckland. When did you end up moving on from Cujo, Gene? And why? Just wanted to try something new space and.
Oh yeah. There's a few politics in there, you know, you know, which keeps them, you know, myself.
Right. Yeah.
But people that know me and Judith and would you know aware, but
I think 2-3 years is a good run for anywhere.
It's really funny. It's really funny. I only told someone, because this brings John Minty into it, really, you know, to go to and starting off Galatos, so which I take my hat off to. So Judith and I, we went in there, you know, did our goodwill again, and were styled up the place, helped build the place, create the place, and
interesting history. Yeah. Was it a theatre, a dance?
God, that place has been a multitude of things. So it was an old dance hall during the war, I believe, and was apparently meant to have one of the fastest dance floors. You know, the parquet flooring. You know, throw a bit of talcum powder on there.
Yeah, did the Melbourne Shuffle or the 1920s swing?
It's been a Druids hall.
I was just man, I was going to hit you with that. That was the okay. It was originally built.
It was a
on the spot now, but the Druid thing cracked me up because it sounds similarly titled.
Have you done your research on that then? Have you?
Mate, I am sitting here. I'm sitting here with pages and pages and.
When I say a Druid,
I just reference tab 10 on the Firefox Explorer there. Okay. The property was built in the early 1900s and was originally the lodge, wait for it, for the United Ancient Order of Druids, which sounds kind of KLF-y, which sounds similar to the whole scene that you've just described that was happening in Auckland. The Ancient Order of Druids. So I haven't Googled who they are yet. But
I've never Googled and I've never, know that because, you know, obviously...
And when you guys got in there, had it been anything for years, or was it just like
yeah. So it was also, I believe, the All Golds, used as the All Golds, the first rugby league association in New Zealand, which was, I think the All Golds were like both New Zealand and Australia league players together.
It was but was the kind of rats really comfortable there when you moved on, or was a business handed on to you guys?
No. Okay, and then just before... John and myself and Judith, we went to look at it. So it was a Korean karaoke
Perfect.
establishment. It was a den, in fact.
Of iniquity or just karaoke?
Oh, well,
I think the basement was.
Yeah, there was lots going on there.
Yeah.
But the funny thing it was, the whole floor, even in these little rooms, was full with cigarette butts. It was cigarette butts
Really?
all over.
Carpet?
All over the carpet, yeah, carpet burned. Look, listen, back then you could smoke in bars and clubs, so but for some reason, half cigarettes, love smoke, and just stamped out. So it was a carpet of everywhere. It was pretty messy. It was pretty messy. We had to...
It was dirty.
Yeah, had to rip that up completely.
Dirty.
Yeah, rip it to its bones and rebuilt. And
So there was some kind of like $600 20-minute karaoke special, something like that.
I don't know, bro.
I can't.
I've never been to those places.
What if
I think that was part of what was going on there.
The windows were boarded up below. And
what if I did a Fat Freddy song? I wouldn't. I'd only just get through it in that time. It's a lot of money.
There was a lack of live venues. Live music was just starting to sort of like, well, it had more or less come to a bit of a standstill because it kind of like went Power Station, and then all the others like Java Jive had shut, and the small places, and a lot of bands, it would become very dancey. So because when I first came here, it was a lot of covers bands here for some reason, lots of Jimi Hendrix cover bands and bits and pieces, so there was a lot of live music, but it was very kind of like very rock orientated.
And carbon, I get it, and carbon copies and stuff. So I remember that live music coming back on up, and so there was a space there.
So the bar upstairs we created as a lounge bar, and we built as a lounge bar, and downstairs as that live venue, performance.
That's right. Around that time, you might not remember this either, Cian, but I literally randomly bumped into you in London, and you were working at Music and Video Exchange, and there was an afternoon. You might have even been over there, but so you were back home for a while during that period, eh?
When Jude and Jean set up Galatos, I shot off overseas for I don't know how long. So I missed out on the initial sort of stages of Galatos, but we did another one when the whole Welly mob came on up. We had a going away party in Galatos before it actually opened, if you remember, upstairs. Yeah. And the bar was in and the fireplace was in, and they were probably like weeks away from opening, really, wasn't it? And we had a bit of a shindig upstairs. But when it actually officially opened, I was away for I missed out on the initial stages of Galatos. You
guys have been away from that side of the world a long time now, obviously, apart from visiting back. What do you make of what's happening in the UK at the moment?
I only found out yesterday.
He only came in yesterday anyway. All right. So he kissed the Queen's hand this morning, and he's the God. Look at it. Well, it's just I don't know what to say. It's quite embarrassing. I was laughing at the USA's leader, and now I'm looking at it. It's like, but if he can get something done with this Brexit, then I'll take me hat off with him. But he's not going about anything the right way at the moment. But I don't know.
I suppose. You know what?
I'm confused. I'm confused.
You know what's funny?
I think it's a nation confused.
I wrote in a thread yesterday, like something like, I've been trying to figure out in like one word what I feel like about in general about the world, all of this in the last few years. I was like, I can't remember, it was like angry or frustrated or this, that, the other, and I ended up going, I think I'm just confused. Like, how are all these eggs running the world? It's bizarre.
Yeah, there's no diplomacy anymore. Well, as we know, the Donald, there's no diplomacy from him, and this guy doesn't seem to have any diplomacy as well, you know.
So for the time
it's
time that you guys did live on, you know, live there, and you both you grew up there later on, like it's sort of like when I asked Russell Brown on that episode whether or not Trump would get in, and it just is difficult to call. But as I say, with that sort of insight of the Brits having lived there, do you think Brexit will go ahead or not?
To be truthful, I don't know too much about it. I was back a couple of years ago, and it'd
be bizarre.
I delved into it a little bit because someone said to me, you know, when it first happened, they said, "Oh, you Brits are stupid" or whatever, and I said, "Well, I don't know. You know, I haven't lived there for X amount of years." So when I went back a couple of years ago, I did ask people, and I tell you what, it's very mixed over there.
Divided a nation.
There was a lot of disgruntled people, especially within the working class, you know, who just did want to see that split, you know, and they had their reasons for it. Yeah.
No disrespect to old Blighty, but my take on Brexit is a whole bunch of people that voted Let's Go thought it was still Great Britain, but, you know, that's an empire since...
I think most people, English people, you know, like ourselves, we know that it's not Great Britain. You know, God, you go anywhere in the world and everyone's got something to say about it.
I mean, super historically, I love the UK and Europe, but I'm meaning like, you know,
forget about politics.
From...
Let's forget about politics. Let's talk about good music. Good music comes from the UK. Do you know what I mean? Good influences, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, now he thinks I'm dissing the UK.
Yeah. No. I just want to move away from politics. Let's look at the good that comes from there.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because it's right now. Last night we went to see Little Sims, and yeah, there's some great music coming out of the UK, and you know,
she's blown up now.
But it's good because it's underground big.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I like underground.
Yeah.
I like things, you know, you can still be big, but you can still stay to that level, do you know what I mean?
Coming back to that venue size thing, yeah. You must be proud of what your kids have done music-wise.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's without a doubt. You know. Doesn't matter what they do, you know, I'll always be proud. So that's what becomes of being a father. But, yeah, extremely proud that that they've been influenced by many people around them. Because in the early days they were surrounded by really good people, you know, Cian himself, and lots of that have rubbed off on them. Do you know what I mean? You know, not just mum and dad. I think their surroundings of good people around them has rubbed off. Yeah. Just
remind me, you're the business partner or offsider I met with you years ago is it Tony, another UK.
Tony wasn't a business partner.
Just a friend.
Yeah,
he told me a mad story one day. I'll never forget that he was behind one of the big early Acid House records in the UK.
You know what? That's actually he played me it.
Yeah, he used to.
That's so. I was like,
just the other month. Transatlantic Tony.
Yeah, Tony Transatlantic.
I remember him telling me that 20 years ago.
Yeah. So when I'm back there, do you know what I mean? I'll bump into a few. Yeah, people, you know, say hi to Tony Transatlantic, but. No, well, story goes back anyway. Sort of like I met Tony. He just landed. He'd only been here a couple of weeks, and him and his wife then, Jasmine. They come up to Kuja, and you know, obviously, brother to brother. We gravitated towards each other, bang, and then Tony and Jasmine. They come and lived with Judith and myself and the kids. You know, for almost a year. And within that time, you know, Tony got to meet everybody, and I'm just trying to think of the clothing shop,
Morrison Hotel.
That's right.
Yeah. So Yasmin was seeing
Dapper Jed.
Oh
Dapper
God,
Jed.
Forgot his name, but anyway, Tony went down there and worked, and then became manager there, and. It became a little bit of a social place. Yeah, Daryl, that's it, yeah, who had Morrison Hotel, men's clothing shop.
Yeah.
Down the bottom of Tang, just off of Little High Street. And, everyone was going in there, do you know what I mean, to see Tony. Tony was becoming a little bit of a man about Tang.
Yeah.
And where Tony was living with Judith and I said to John, he'd be a good addition to what we were creating, because I believe in maitre d's, I come from that old school, do you know what I mean? That someone's going to look after you.
Yeah.
And that's basically where my hospitality and Judith's the same, come and thought, Tony would be great, so brought him in, to help with the business. But, let's keep it as that.
You came back and your records had been stored in the basement of Galatos, and then that's kind of where the turnaround comes from, right?
Yeah. That basement. I think our friend Anya was the first one to do something. I just had all my records stored down there. But
it's a brave man who leaves his records somewhere fairly public. Yeah, but that's cool.
It was safe as houses, man. No one went down there.
No.
It was like,
it was a den.
I don't think anyone even really realised there was a basement apart from...
You know where I didn't bother telling you before, but where you went and played with Tubbs, 126...
121.
121. I lived... That's the building I was talking about before, around the corner from Moose. I lived there for 3 years, and none of us... 3 levels of...
Never knew there was a basement.
Never knew there was a basement there. There was... I don't know, I think Tim told me the story, he looked at plans or something and found it, but apparently there's all these basements around from back in the day. Things like pubs used to have like kegs stored down there. Man. Manufacturing places
we
would
call
have...
them cellars in the UK. But I think quite a bit went on down in the basement before we actually went down there.
Yeah.
And then... there's probably the same as Gene, as we were saying before. I love... There's something about stepping off the street and going either up or down that really appeals, rather than just walking straight off the street into a venue. And those places, obviously, for me anyway, basements have a better sound. I just knew that we could easily turn people on down in that basement, and it was a real manageable size. You didn't need, 80 people in there. You'd have a party on your hands.
Yeah.
That's...
But you and Manny and...
I knew Manny, obviously, pretty well. Andy was just one of those people that... He rocked on up at Jessica Agri's... Jessica Agri, who's a good mutual friend of ours, house party. And he DJ'd at this house party I went to, and not wanting to sound wanky or anything, but it takes quite a lot to prick up my ears in New Zealand, and he just absolutely smashed this party in a way that I hadn't heard anyone in New Zealand kind of put music together. I was like, my God, if I'm gonna do something, I want to do something with this guy. I either want to book him for somewhere or do something with him.
It didn't fully dawn on me till recently, like how much of that era of really seminal New Zealand hip hop is kind of one way or another him. It's kind of like I sort of shuddered realizing how talented
hero,
he is.
he's
done some good production. Shay.
Yeah.
I went up and introduced myself, and then I don't know how... It wouldn't have been that much longer after that we hooked up at Manny's flat, and I was like, mate, there's a brilliant basement. I don't know if you got... I think Manny had been down there. I know Andy hadn't. Yeah. Took him on down, and that's how the turnaround was kind of...
I think of you, Cian, when I sort of... Well, in the joke, I was pointing out, quite seriously, that I remember your handwriting from the Soul Mine, like that artistic flair, like that was a part of the show, right? It was like the posters, wasn't there a magazine for a minute? There was a whole aesthetic around the...
Well, I think Jude and Gene's way of doing things, heaps of that rubbed off on me.
Yeah.
As far as maybe not, definitely wanting to host something with friends and whānau, and at that time, which is why we called it the turnaround.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit stagnant in Auckland.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to do something purely because the mob that we hanging around with were always went, there's not really anything that we want to kind of go out to on the regular. So we started this monthly, really just for friends and family, and it kind of just from Cian and Jude opening up Kuja, it was tapping into a sector of a market that felt a little bit not lost, but just filling gaps, I think. And it just, I don't know, it obviously kind of resonated with a lot more people than just our mates.
Because they became Ramajam, They were like...
we were... I mean, we had to move it because it was...
Well, it's legendary now. It's got, parts of folklore. There's many people times we're talking and, people will come out with some time that they've had experience that they've had at a turnaround. Yeah. And, it's, bang.
I think a lot of kids were born out of the turnaround.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
From what I've been told.
Yeah. We got explore marriages, explore babies, turnaround. Yeah, no, absolutely. Where else are you going to meet good people,
Yeah. Well, I met Dave Hutch down at a turnaround. And I can always remember his lovely lady saying to me, she was trying to get him to come over here, and she was saying, and I said to Dave, mate, this is, because he was saying, I don't know about coming. And I said, mate, this is a top place, bruv, do you know what I mean? If you get in the right scene, right people, and you can do it, he was like, I like it, but look at him here. Look, he's here now. He's
like
established. All right there, Dave. I hope you can hear that, bruv. You know what I mean? You might not remember that time.
I'm sure he will.
Without you and your lovely wife there.
Without getting your violin out or anything, I think you've spoken well to that today, Cian. Like you guys, kind of like taking people under your wing here, because you need that in Auckland, man, because I know, so many people experience the opposite, where this city, you can, in Wellington, you talked about, I remember you were like, I went to what the fuck's Wainuiomata, what the fuck is the bucket fountain, and then suddenly you're smoking cigarettes with Matt Popplewell at the back of Chelsea, right? And Auckland, it can be 2 years, or, it can be 8 people, this city can eat people up if they don't have that, so it's a good...
I'm a people watcher. I love people watching, I love cities, I love places like, where, like Thailand, Bangkok, New York. I like watching characters. I'm all about characters, and I'm attracted to individuals, characters, and individual spirit. And you recognise certain things, and you just want to bring that out, and you just go, that one's got it, and you want to bring it out. So good observation. It's all about watching.
It's the people that make or break.
Cian peering from outside a tree at Explore. It's all about watching.
No. Listen, look, Explore to me, I love people watching, mate. And I go, whoa.
That's the place to people watch. I didn't pick that very well.
And I've watched that grow as well. I've watched that grow from,
Did you do them every month? Every month for how many years?
Pretty much 9 years.
Wow.
But, pretty much every month. Sometimes even more than 12 a year, because we do, throw in a Christmas party, or we did a lot of supports. Yeah. In fact, I think one of the first, I could be wrong, Cian, one of the first gigs that Eden came to, we did the support for Black Alicious, which was at Galatos. And we took Cian's son Eden along to that.
He'd come up, my boy used to come up, being the owner of the establishment, you know. So he used to come up a few times, but yeah, he remembers that one very well. That Blackalicious.
Don't ask me how I remember this. You have flashes, don't you? But I remember it has to be those kids, as kids at Cujo one day when I was up with the Wellington crew, and then I bumped into them at base. It's like,
Yeah. See, because
they're always running around.
Always running around.
If someone needs to come and talk about history that'll never be written, it's Manny. And I nearly had him coming on in, but he maybe got cold feet at the last minute. But he has listened to a few and really liked them. So, Manuel Bundy, if you'd like to come and chat, that'll be an honour.
This one's gone all over the place, though, hasn't it?
It's a conversation. Yeah.
Oh, Manny should definitely be documented.
I mean, obviously 20 years is the short answer, Gene, but what made you get on up and say, I'm going to do a gig for this?
Well, I never. John said, should we do a, 20th anniversary, blah, blah, blah. This was last year. Because he actually thought it was last year. And I said, and then it wasn't. And then he's come back to me again earlier this year. He said, come on now, where should we... And they're saying, oh, Gene, why don't you do this? Yeah, blah, 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 whatever. It's about time we caught up, because there's lots of people that have, been in my life at some stage or other, do you know what I mean? And remember me from certain, it's about time we caught up, had a drink. And it never actually happens, does it, And so when John said, it's like, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Come on in, let's do something, John. Yeah. Okay, let's do it. It's kind of like giving me a couple of sleepless nights, though, because John... And then the following week, John shot off. So he's only just got back. So it gave me... Because I've had to get into boxes because he set up this site. And I was like, oh, God.
You mean the Facebook page?
The Facebook page, yeah, because... I've never been on Facebook as much.
What's funny to say?
In the last month.
He didn't get the messages last night and stuff. It was like maybe not
because I've never been on... I go on there intermittently, do you know what I mean? And I've never been on... Bang, and I've...
But I was going to say, your Galatos promotion game is strong on Facebook.
No, bro, I've got boxes out and I'm finding stuff. I've been digging because it's like, I've got to do something, I've been digging. Yeah. But a lot of the good stuff I actually gave away, because when you take photographs, back in those days, you took photographs and you gave them actually away, to that particular person who's on that photograph. There must be heaps of photos. And it's kind of like, I've more or less kept the dregs and I'm finding the dregs, but they're actually looking okay. It's like the dregs... the ones that you'd normally throw away, actually all of a sudden, because that's the only visual documentation that you've actually got. But there must be loads out there. There's so many. There's Nell. I was talking to Nell. Nell was saying maybe you've got the box, but she took loads. Steve Usher, the photographer,
was a photographer, flyers, but I don't think I've got many pics.
I reckon
Steve Usher, who was a photographer back then. Well, he loved playing around both up Cuja and at Galatos. So John openly, we've kept it private just to see what kind of like feedback, and it's like, God, feedback's, and so there's me. I'm like pulling out things and trying to.
It's been great.
And sometimes I think that, so, like I say, I've had a few sleepless, because it's like, well, God, Gene, you got to try and pull out something. But it's like everyone's going, what's the entertainment? It's like, come on, it's the vibes, bruv. It's the vibes. The vibe is everyone that was there at that time.
Yeah.
They got to bring their A game. Bring your A game. Do you know what I mean? Bring a vibe. It's all about you bringing the vibe, making the night. Do you know what I mean? If you want to go out and have a good night, only you can go out and have a good night. And this is what we want to reintroduce. It's got no names on the flyers, okay? Just come and have a good night, okay?
What flyers? Have you seen flyers?
Well, not flyers. I've got a few kind of like invites, because old school again, I've been mailing them. You haven't checked your postman Pat's come to see you. Well, I've just been mailing, just people that have been significant within who within Galatos. Okay, there's a I flick one eye. I tried to get someone's address the other day, only yesterday, and he said, "Oh, thanks, Cian, for." And I said, "Yeah, bro. Do you know what I mean? You laid gigs up there. Do you know what I mean? Which was, part of the stepping stone of Galatos. I don't forget. I'm one of those ones that don't forget. Do you know what I mean? And I always try to give my hand out back somewhere along the line.
Yeah.
And so I'm reaching out to those people, okay? Because it was their vibe. Do you know what I mean? We had a good vibe going.
Yeah. Who's going to book the entertainment? What's it?
Oh, it's done. It's done. It's done. But look, don't worry about, you know what I mean?
I'm on the wind
Just
up.
come up and have a good time.
Because I've had
DJs phoning me up and even texting me messages. Oh, I was up there. It's like, look, just come up and enjoy. I want them to come up and enjoy their night. Have a good night.
Before we, happy birthday, Cian.
Oh, cheers, bro.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Before we go, how's Raglan treating you? You got? I see these little posters. Is that a shop or a market store, a little record shop?
A little shop. Kind of joint project with my lady.
Yeah.
Her artwork. Still trying to sling records out of there.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of a hard push.
Yeah.
Second-hand clothes, which is
cool.
Kind of something I never thought I'd get into.
But Raglan's a sort of spot where people will stop for that sort of thing. That's what they'd want there, right?
It's definitely, without blowing our own trumpet, it's definitely turned a lot of the locals on, and the visitors love it.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's definitely got flavour.
Is it a microclimate? Will it be hotter when you get back today, like the Coromandel, or?
We get, it's West Coast, man. We get smashed.
West Coast, yeah.
Sort of very windy, very wet.
Famous.
And very seasonal, with people coming and going.
Famous spot in New Zealand, but when you grow up in Wellington, you don't really holiday. I didn't even go to the Coromandel till I was whatever.
It's crazy
Yacht club.
who shows up there randomly. Like, it's nuts. Just this weekend, I had my old flatmate Esther from when we used to live with Phil and Sam. She showed up pregnant. Old friends of mine that used to live with Leon and Matt down in Wellington. A guy called Barry, he showed up. Walking down the street, you bump into Sparrow. Dan Tippett's been down. Muso's DJs who are playing at the Yacht Club. It's a
spot.
It's definitely becoming more and more of a kind of little vibrant rural coastal town. It's a colourful for rural New Zealand. It's really colourful.
Yeah,
especially in the summer.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for coming in, Jen. It's like you've been an intriguing fellow for years, and I've watched you do a lot of quite amazing things. And I was pretty stoked when both you said you'd come on up together to have a chat. Because as I say, if no one records this or writes this down,
bro, I thank you for you actually even saying that and noticing that, because I don't.
And there's still a lot.
I don't think people
unsaid
do
about
really
this
actually.
man as to what
he
has actually offered this city, without a doubt. There's many other things I think you can touch on.
Yeah,
but maybe that's another episode.
Well, the car parking is probably about $4,300 now. So we should call it a day. Thank you.
That.
All right.